to another spooky Sunday. Now, I don't know about you all, but I've had a decent week, and hopefully I can make it a little better for everyone with some spooky videos. Now, on the backboard here, we have the ranking from the 3 videos, from 1 to 10 on a scary scale, and we'll update that after each video. Now, let's get into it. There we go. There we go. Alright. So the first one we're gonna watch here.
It was 2 years ago. I was called in to do the night shift, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. at 7-Eleven, since somebody called out. The store was located on a busy road in a rather quiet and rural area. During the night shift, you could expect anywhere from 10 to 20 people come in to buy a beer or something else. This one particular night, there was this one guy, mid-20s, that came in. He started making weird noises, like loud yelling noises. I assumed he had some kind of mental disability. In fact, my brother has a mental disability, so I immediately felt sympathy for the guy. He walked up to the counter without any items, with his head facing me, but his eyes were looking up at the ceiling. I felt uncomfortable.
So not only do they look the equivalent of a walker, they're on something. You all understand what I mean?
I honestly didn't know how to deal with it. I tried speaking with him, but he only responded in loud noises. I kept checking if he was...
Hey, the Cheez-A chips contains cheese levels over goo.
...with someone outside, but he was alone. There weren't any cars in the parking lot, so I assumed he walked.
Why is there a 7-Eleven in the middle of nowhere?
He stood there for so long, looking up at the ceiling and making noises, that I tried to get him out by handing him a bag of chips and telling him he can go. I tried finding some kind of number to call for someone to help him. Then, out of nowhere, he finally turned around and walked out of the store. I felt so horrible for the man, but at the same time, I felt a bit creeped out. About an hour later, the phone on the counter rang.
Who calls 7-Eleven? Unless it's an employee. Ain't no way customers actually call a 7-Eleven. 'Cause I've never once seen or heard of a customer actually calling a 7-Eleven.
I picked up to hear the familiar yelling sounds of the man from earlier.
Hang up.
It caught me off guard. I didn't know what to think, other than this has to be some kind of prank.
I
hung up on them and was now becoming paranoid of my surroundings, constantly checking the outside through the windows. Come 4 o'clock, the person working after me came in, finally allowing for me to go home. It wasn't my problem anymore. I got home and threw all my stuff on the table, ready to get to sleep. But my phone rang within a minute after entering the door. I felt a chill run down my spine. Why would someone be calling at 4 a.m.?
Don't pick
up. I could only imagine it was bad news. I braced myself and picked up the phone to hear the man again. I felt sick to my stomach as I listened to the loud noises he made. I struggled to slam the phone to the receiver. All night I felt like I was being watched, even with all the blinds shut. And I could swear I heard strange noises coming from all over my house. I refused to get any sleep until the sun came up. Weeks passed and I had forgotten about the incident, until one day, when going into the basement for the first time in a while, I found that papers had been scattered all over the floor, and when I went into the basement closet, I found writing on the walls. 7-Eleven had been written in Sharpie on the wall, along with the address to the 7-Eleven I worked at and my house address. The most disturbing part, I also found various kitchen knives, along with a large pocket knife sitting in the closet. What started out as seemingly just an innocent person turning into something of a prank ultimately turned into something much more horrifying.
Yeah.
He had been living down there for God knows how long, and I'm just grateful that, for whatever reason, he changed his mind and left, because I haven't seen or heard from him since. All I can say is that man is dangerously ill.
Ooh. Okay, well, that one actually gave me a bit of goosebumps, so we're gonna give that one 8 out of 10. Alrighty. So, let's head to the next one. Excuse me.
This happened when I was 15 years old. My best friend Anthony wanted me to come over for the night since his parents would be gone all weekend. I rode my bike over and put it in his backyard before letting myself in through his back door. We played basically every video game he had, from FIFA all the way to Call of Duty, with popcorn and other junk food spilled out all over the floor. As the night progressed, we moved from video games to watching half a movie and getting bored to doing prank calls at close to 10 o'clock. Anthony made a few calls.
Fun fact, me and my friends, one night may or may not have done a bit of prank calling to various, fast food restaurants. Preferably Burger King, and ordering one of everything off the menu in little kid voices, and then we had someone come on and act like they were like the parent, and like a kid was just ordering stuff for no reason. It's very hard to keep straight faces.
Calls to different pizza places. When it was
Little
my
Caesars.
turn, I just dialed a few random numbers in hopes to get someone at their house. On, say, my fourth attempt, I finally reached somebody. A guy with a deep and rough voice picked up, answering with a yeah instead of a hello. Anthony's laughing in the background made me stumble with my words mid-sentence, ultimately cracking up into laughter. I had never done a prank call, so I sucked at it. The guy on the other end was silent. I regained a straight face and tried to continue with the call. It went something like this. Sir, would it be alright if I borrowed one of the wheels from your car? What's your name, kid? My name is Bob. Really? You sure it's not Anthony? It hit me like a brick. I looked up at Anthony, whose face was noticeably full of fear. I hung up the phone, not wanting to be on the line with whoever that was for another second. Anthony, who the hell was that? I asked him. I don't know, he told me. Does your caller ID info display your name or something? No, it shows my dad's name. We hopped on the computer and did some research, trying to figure out how it was possible to get someone's name through their phone number. It didn't make sense how he could get Anthony's name so quickly. He was way too young at the time to be on any of those personal information sharing websites. We ended up asking a question on Yahoo Answers, since no one had a similar experience.
Yahoo Answers. Oh, how big Yahoo once was.
The question turned up no answers. I suggested he call his dad, but he said he wasn't supposed to have anybody over for the weekend, so he didn't want to call. We planned on sleeping in the living room, so we just resumed watching the movie that we hadn't finished from earlier. Right after the phone call had left my mind, me and Anthony looked at each other when we heard his front storm door opening, and then the doorknob to the front door began to turn.
You didn't lock the door?
It only was able to turn about halfway before the lock restricted it.
Oh, thank God.
Anthony turned off the TV, and I went over to the window to see who it was. I spread the blinds open. There was a tall guy standing outside. He noticed the blinds moving, and turned to look at me.
Oh.
I practically threw the blinds back into place. Me and Anthony hid in the kitchen, listening for any more noises. We heard the sound of the gate to the backyard opening, as it was right outside the kitchen window. God damn it, I said. I forgot to shut the back door. Anthony urged me to run and shut it. I made it to the hallway leading to his back door and froze. There was a silhouette standing outside the back door. I don't think he noticed me, but he was surely looking into the house. He opened the door and stepped inside. I tiptoed to the kitchen and motioned for Anthony to follow me upstairs. We made it to his room as quietly as possible, pulling the door shut to avoid making any noise. We crawled under his bed. He had cloth covering the bottom of his bed, so you couldn't see anything under it unless you actually moved the cloth. The doors downstairs all opened, each one getting closer to the stairs. Thumps finally began up the stairs, and he was right outside the door now. The door to the room opened. I could hear Anthony's breathing. It was too loud. Footsteps moved over to the closet, and then the closet opened. I could hear the coat hangers being slid around as the fabric of the jackets and coats rubbed against each other. Footsteps moved over to the bed and stopped. I felt like my heart was about to explode out of my chest. Anthony's breathing was too loud. I had to cover his mouth with my hand. Nothing but silence in the room now. We laid still for so long, I almost thought he wasn't even in the room anymore. I moved my hand away from Anthony's mouth and whispered in his ear, "You think we can make a run for it?" He was about to answer when the most disturbing, memory-haunting scream I'd ever heard filled my ears as Anthony was seemingly dragged out from under the bed. I crawled out and saw him struggling with the man. I desperately looked around for anything to use as a weapon.
Take the lamp.
I settled with the screwdriver sitting on his nightstand.
Oh, that works too.
I hurried over to the man and drove the screwdriver into his back. He let go of Anthony as he let out a scream of agony, giving us time to get the hell out of the house. Running onto the road would give away our position too easily. It would take too long to make it to his neighbor's house. We dove for the tree line in the woods and took cover behind a bush, watching the house. The back door opened as the man stepped outside, looking around the backyard. He then looked out to the woods. I felt his eyes pass me as he scanned through the tree line. It seemed that it was too dark for him to see us. Then, he turned his head back in our direction. I ducked behind the bush. "Joe, he's coming." "What?" "Dude, get up, we gotta run." He was right. The man was approaching us fast. How could he have seen us? We ran through the woods with the leaves crunching under us, giving away our position. When Anthony tripped over something, I crouched down with him, hoping we had run far enough.
No, you have not.
Not even 20 seconds later, oncoming footsteps from the direction we were running from came fast. They slowed down only 2 trees away from us as we lay face down in the leaves. Moments later, the footsteps take off in another direction. We waited until we could no longer hear them and took off back in the direction of the house. While running, over the sound of leaves crushing and my heavy breathing, I could swear I heard leaves crushing from behind us. We made it back to his backyard, into his house, and this time remembering to shut the back door. We were now able to call the police. Anthony stayed on the line with them, while I patrolled the back windows, making sure nobody was out there. It was so dark though, I couldn't see anything. So I did something that seems stupid today. I turned on his backyard lights, and immediately in the distance, over by the woods, I saw him, standing in front of a big tree. He turned off back into the woods and disappeared out of sight. That was the last time me or Anthony ever saw him. I would be lying if I told you we heard the occasional knocks at our windows or something cliche. No, that was it. 5 years have passed and nothing has happened. Do I wonder if it was somehow linked to the prank call? Maybe. Does it make sense? Not really. But yeah, this was the story of how me and my still best friend Anthony almost died during a break-in.
Okay, well, we're gonna give that one a 10 out of 10. Because that was very good and honestly very horrifying. So, we're gonna move on to the next one. Right, this is
Thanks
the
to
third
XP
and
Pen for
final
sponsoring
video.
this.
No, you don't get to advertise your information on my stuff. Nope.
At the end.
Okay, it's gonna be at the end.
A cool breeze crept through the valley outside of Telluride, Colorado, as my friends and I unloaded the truck parked on the dirt driveway. We had recently started renting an old mining house built in the early 1900s. Most of the home had been renovated over the years, but there were still glimpses of what the house used to be. The exterior of the home was painted a bright yellow and adorned a blood-red door. The yard was abundant, with lush green grass, minus the few brown patches that littered the ground.
Well, that sounds like a nice house.
In the corner of the yard sat a dilapidated gazebo filled to the brim with landscaping equipment.
You
I
could
stood
fix
facing
it.
the house, admiring the quaint ambiance it seemed to exude. I felt something hit my back and spun around. My brother, William, was standing behind me with a box under his right arm. "Let's pick up the pace, we don't have all day," he said, with a little annoyance masked in his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I responded, and started walking to the back of the truck. My other two friends, Elijah and Leon, were in the process of stacking some boxes on a dolly. "Hey man, take this to my room," Elijah said, as he handed me a large box.
Okay, you got a four people in the house. I mean, gonna make rent
I
easier.
resituated it in my arms and gripped it. As I did so, I could hear glass clanging inside, and a strong, familiar odor starting to leak out. "Hey man, be careful," Elijah snapped. "If you ever want to smoke again, I'd highly advise you to take it one step at a time there, champ." "Maybe if you didn't throw everything into one single box without bubble wrap, then you wouldn't have an issue of something breaking, Elijah," Leon responded.
Oh.
Elijah's
Okay, I get
eyes
it
widened,
now.
as if he had just figured out the secrets of the universe. I laughed, turned around, and proceeded into the house. The floorboards creaked as I stepped onto the warped living room floor.
Seems like
I
a big
surveyed my
house.
surroundings of the old rustic home as I headed to Elijah's bedroom. Only 2 interior rooms had been renovated in the entire house, one being the kitchen, which had marble countertops and new appliances,
Ooh.
the other being my room. I was the one who found the home on the market, so respectively I had first choice of which room I wanted to claim as my own. The other rooms, on the other hand, were still the same as they had been since the early 1900s, with
So you guys
dreary
guys,
wooden floorboards and old chipping paint.
So they're gonna have a bit of a
"Dude,
fixer-upper
what the
house.
hell?" William yelled from upstairs. I quickly climbed the narrow stairway to find my brother in his room. I walked in to find what looked like to be a large lump underneath the wooden floorboards. It almost looked like Andre the Giant was buried in the middle of the room. "I told you it was an old home, Will. Things shift over time," I said, trying to hold my snickering back. "Yeah, I get that, but you didn't say that I'd have to maneuver around a speed bump," he snapped back. I took a deep sigh and turned to him. "Okay, look man, we're only gonna be here for a year. You've got plenty of room to put your bed so you're not sleeping on an incline." William turned back to the floor dejected. "That's easy for you to say. You're not staying on the cover of Sticky Fingers by the Rolling Stones." After we had moved everything into the house, we all plopped down on the couch, beers in hand, and began our well-deserved R&R. Elijah had already begun smoking, and the room started to fill with the pungent odor. "So are we gonna be doing some ghost hunting tonight, boys?" Elijah said, as he passed the joint to Leon. "Oh, come on, you don't actually believe that crap, do you?" Leon responded as he was rolling his eyes. "The guy blew his brains out on the front porch in the 1930s. I'd be surprised if there wasn't a ghost floating through the halls. I mean, how do you think we got such a killer deal on rent?" William said as he lifted his arms and started mimicking the sounds of a specter. "Shut up," It's all nonsense. You've just been watching too much Ghost Hunters, I responded.
Good show.
Anyway, I'm gonna go to bed. We need to get up early to do some cleaning. Good night, guys. I stood up and meandered to my room. In all reality, I was a little perturbed by what happened at this house. I've always been quite agnostic to my beliefs of ghosts or spirits, but I've never witnessed anything myself. The rent was super cheap for an entire house, and I wanted to save some money for a trip outside of the country. I pushed the fact that someone had ended their life to the back of my mind. I wish things would have turned out much differently. I entered my room and slid under my sheets and basked in the warmth of my bed. It had been a long day and my body ached from moving. I grabbed my phone and looked for a rain and thunder YouTube video to help me sleep, and after about 15 minutes, I crept into comfortable darkness. My eyes shot open in the middle of the night. The moonlight shone through my window and enveloped my room in comforting light. I could hear creaking from the house as the wind howled outside. I tried to sit up, but found my efforts futile. Sleep paralysis was a regular occurrence in my life. It happened at least once a month due to stress and a little help from my antidepressants. At this point, I'd almost gotten used to it. I could hear what sounded like a light scratching noise coming from inside my room, and prepared myself for the usual dark figure to be standing in the corner. My eyes darted from left to right, trying to decipher where the noise was coming from. It was then I started to hear skittering, like someone or something was moving around. A cold feeling crept over my body as I started sweating profusely, my sheets becoming soaked. The skittering stopped, but was replaced by cracking, one that resembled that of broken bone. Out of my peripheral vision, I could see long, needle-like limbs protruding from my closet. They each moved slowly, tapping the wall as if they were looking for something. I then saw a large, bulbous black mass starting to show itself from the closet door. It was coated in tiny hairs and twitched almost habitually. A loud moan echoed throughout my room
spider.
as the creature finally presented itself. A spider-like entity was situated on my wall.
No thanks.
The reason I say spider-like was because its head had been replaced with that of a human one. Its eyes were blacked out from the shadows of moonlight, and its lower jaw was removed, revealing a blotchy tongue that oozed saliva. It was about the size of a twin bed, and stared at me for what seemed like hours. My heart was racing. I was begging my body to move, but to no avail. I was stuck there, in suspended torment. I tried screaming, but I was unable to make a sound. All I could do was watch the creature on my wall as it grew closer. Suddenly, it skittered to the ceiling right above me and started scratching with its two front legs, almost like it was burrowing. It then started to sink into the wall, as if the wall had turned into quicksand. First, the abdomen, then the legs. Eventually, all that was left was its mangled head staring straight at me. Those cold, dead eyes boring into my soul. I could hear it moaning, and I could feel the drips of saliva hit my torso. The creature then let out an inhuman roar and vanished into my ceiling. My body was finally released, and I jolted out of my bed screaming. As I did, the house erupted into more terrified outcries coming from upstairs. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who saw something, and unfortunately, it wouldn't be the last time either.
Oh, that is a creepy one. Well, I hope you all have enjoyed this week's Spooky Sunday. And make sure if you enjoy any of my content, please subscribe. You can find my podcast, which is linked on the channel, and you can also find me at TikTok at infotv.tv13. Now, hope you have a good day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye!